There's a Jerry. Better wave at him.
Okay, we're going to get started again. I gave you a little bit longer than 10 minutes. I think we mostly have everybody here. So just a reminder, we are recording these meetings, although I completely forgot to do that until just now. So the whole first hour is not. It doesn't exist, so you're all anonymous. But now you're being recorded. And again, you will not be on video. No.
Good.
I'll push it for blackmail material.
Oh yeah, good.
All of the PowerPoints that are being shown today are going to be on Google, and you should have received, I think, an invitation for that already. But keep an eye on that folder because there are going to be a couple of other things that get added to it, such as the presentation I just gave, because it's not up there right now. One other administrative thing that I wanted to say before we go on is I put the rules of engagement back in here to remind everybody what they are. And particularly number 6 seems to be a problem for a lot of people. I'm not going to mention names, but it has come up repeatedly. So I just thought I would remind you all of what the rules are, particularly the sticking to the subject matter part. Father Payne will be happy to hear your confession if you're one of the rule breakers, because he was the first one. So you can see him about that. But let's kind of keep that to a minimum in future meetings. Okay, so we're going to move on to the advisory group now. And the advisory group, remember, is people like Jerry Kenny at PRIP, CNPPID, it's also DNR, the National Drought Mitigation Center, sort of the alphabet soup of agencies. Jerry's going to talk a little bit on the phone. He doesn't have any handouts. And then Sarah from NRCS and Kelvin, right, from FSA is going to talk a little bit about their programs. And then we're going to let some of the stakeholder agency people talk about what they're doing after that. I volunteered you for confessions, Father Payne. I hope that was fun.
Well, just wind them up.
Okay, so I want to start with Jerry Kenny, so that if you need to get off, Jerry, you can. If you just want to give everybody, I will cut you off after 7 minutes. If you want to give everyone like a 5 to 7 minute rundown of the program and what it does and what your nexus is maybe with the drought planning process here, just general information that people might need to know.
Okay, I'll keep it and count on you to hold me to that.
I will do that.
So the Platte River Recovery Implementation Program, we did to recover the threatened and endangered species in the Platte Basin. And we do that by acquiring land, water, restoring habitat, and then monitoring and doing science and research to make sure that we are appropriately using those resources for the benefit of the species. And because we're doing that, we provide compliance with the Endangered Species Act for the entire Platte Basin upstream of the confluence with the loop at Columbus. So all of the North Platte, all of the South Platte, and the main stem of the Platte from North Platte to Columbus. So our habitat restoration activities are located in the Central Platte, and that is from Lexington to Chapman. And those activities are for the 3 bird species, whooping crane, piping plover, and interior least tern. And our connection with the North Platte NRD, other than it's under the broad umbrella of the program, is that we have recently, in our water acquisition process, we get water from Colorado, we get water from Wyoming, we get water from Nebraska. Our acquisition and retiming efforts are, again, sort of focused at Lake McConaughey and down, but we have recently acquired property in the North Platte NRD for the purposes of transferring water from irrigation to environmental uses eventually, and there may be additional future activities of this sort or other water-related activities in cooperation with the North Platte NRD, as they also have water goals as well as the program. So, because water and water management is part of the program's mission, and that includes the extremes of droughts and flood. So, both here at the NRD level and at statewide levels in Nebraska and Colorado, we have been part of drought management planning. And drought management planning are collaborative processes, as are we. So we offer both, involvement with water in the North Platte NRD, but expertise, some expertise in water management associated with drought management planning and collaborative processes. So truly more of an advisory role, having specific services or funds or actions to bring to the table in the event of a drought. So we're not going to be like the Red Cross that comes in and sets up tents with water bottles or anything. But we are part of the water community, and drought management planning is an extremely important aspect of water management and to the program. So that's why we're here. Or that's why. And that's my story.
All right. Any questions for Jerry?
Where did they acquire that property?
There's a question, Jerry, about where did you acquire the property in the North Platte NRD that you mentioned?
He broke up.
No. Jerry, we're not hearing you.
It's under the Alliance ditch.
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear that?
We heard the part about it's under the Alliance ditch.
Yeah, that's
It's in Morrill County, if I remember right.
what's that?
It's in Morrill County, if I remember right.
Yes, that's correct. Morrill County.
Okay. Any other questions for Jerry?
Jerry, under the program, the Colorado side of the program, with the Tamarack plan that they, I guess, have in place and operating, how will that be managed under a drought situation?
I don't know if that will differ under a drought situation, other than they would have less opportunity to take surface water, pump it into the recharge basins during drought. Hopefully, water that was previously recharged would be coming back to the river at such times to supplement flow. But there, to my knowledge, is a specific variation in drought management or management under times of drought. They would just have less opportunity to retime
The caller has joined the conference.
Any other questions? Meeting on. Okay, thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you.
Okay, is anybody from DNR on the phone per chance? I don't hear anybody. Okay, so we have a bunch of slides from DNR. We don't have anybody from DNR on the phone. So they're not going to give that part of the presentation, and neither am I. But again, all of these slides will be available on Google, so you'll be able to see not just what's in the handouts, but also what's being shown here. There's also should be contact information in all of these presentations. So if you have specific questions for any of these people later, if you can't find the contact information, let me or Elizabeth know, and we'll put you in touch with the person you want to be talking to. So we're going to scroll through this part, and we're going to start there. Okay. It works. Okay. We need forward, backwards. Perfect. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, I guess officially now. My name is Sarah Gray, and I'm the district conservationist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, and I'm located here in the Scottsbluff office. But we are based on NRD boundaries, so
The caller has left the conference.
we cover all of the North Platte NRD districts. So we have an office in Scottsbluff, as well as Bridgeport, as well as Oshkosh. So I guess we're the federal agency that works in partnership with the NRD to try and address some of the natural resources problems. So I just wanted to go through some of our programs and give a very general, broad overview in a short time. Just to plant the seed. If you do need or would like additional information, I did set some fact sheets on the table there pertaining to two of our more common programs that we work on. And then you can always contact myself or someone in one of our offices if you want more details on some of the programs. But my contact information will be listed, as she mentioned. But they'd asked that we just kind of cover in broad terms what our mission or goal is. So NRCS provides America's farmers and ranchers with financial and technical assistance to voluntarily put conservation on the ground. That's helping the environment as well as operations. So the kind of keyword is voluntary. We don't do anything regulatory except for what's in our Food Security Act manual, which deals with some compliance, making sure that soil erosion is in check and wetlands are not being converted. So, it's local producers like you coming to us, and we work with you on projects to meet your goals and objectives. So as mentioned, we work with individuals, farmers and ranchers, or other ag producers, because we do work with some urban type situations where maybe someone wants to put up a seasonal high tunnel or a hoop house essentially for growing vegetable type products. So it's not, farmers and ranchers maybe doesn't cover the big umbrella anymore. Just going over a couple things in our current farm bill that we work on. These are more common practices, but from a stewardship standpoint, we have what we refer to as CSP, that's the Conservation Stewardship Program. That's a program that came in, it actually came in the 08 Farm Bill, but that was in very limited watersheds. Now it's nationwide in the 14 Farm Bill. And the program is geared to reward producers or ag producers for what they've already done for conservation and incentivize them to do additional items. So you have to offer everything that's in your operation, and then you have to agree to do some additional items in conjunction with what you're currently doing. Land treatment, those are more equip type projects where you need a livestock pipeline and a livestock tank and a cross fence to make your grazing system function, or you're wanting to convert from gravity to a pivot, or you're wanting to do some irrigation water management type practices. We do have some easement programs. Those are more if you're wanting to put wetlands into a walking into an easement type program. And then there's some grant opportunities. I'm only going to focus on the top two for the sake of time. But as mentioned, the CSP is geared towards rewarding people for what they've done and incentivizing them to do a little bit more. They are 5-year contracts, and on average, we're paying $18 per acre per year for a 5-year program, capped at $40,000. But $40,000 a year for 5 years could make a substantial difference for someone that wants to try and do some more on the ground. We compete with areas like for likes. We don't have to compete. Western Nebraska doesn't have to compete with what's going on in Lincoln area. We compete with what's only in our panhandle to try and keep it fair as fair. But what I wanted to really focus on from a standpoint of drought is these additional items that I was mentioning. We would incentivize you to do something more than what you're currently doing. So these would be examples of what additional items you could do. You can convert, you could do a pumping plant evaluation, test your pumping plant, see how efficient it is. Do some regional networking, scheduling, convert to irrigated ground to non-irrigated ground, do some irrigation water management, take your in-gun off to try and save water. Those are just examples from a drought standpoint as it relates to CSP things that we would say, hey, if your goal really is one of your goals and objectives is to try and address maybe or make an impact on drought, we could encourage that. These are just some statewide statistics. It's fairly popular in Nebraska, and it's popular nationwide. Last year we funded about 1/3 of the applications we actually received, so it's competitive. So it just shows in Nebraska. This is acres, but in the North Platte NRD, there's, I can't even see it, so I'm sure you guys can't, but 68,000 acres in both Garden and Morrill County, 101,000 acres in Banner County. So we have there's a pretty good chunk in our area that participates in that program. Now just moving on to EQIP. EQIP again is where we would just focus on individual practices and provide a cost share of sorts. We pay a flat rate now, and the flat rate is based on an average cost, as I mentioned here. So we pay roughly 50% of what it's going to cost you to install. But we get in a little bit of trouble saying that 50% because the contractor or materials, fuel, that all fluctuates, so we might deviate away from the 50%. But it's just to help mitigate the cost of you, and we get, everyone gets the benefit of the impacts to the resources. We provide the cost share after the practice is actually installed and we've checked it out to say yes, it actually was done in accordance to our standards and specifications. But some practices that would directly relate to drought, we can do if you're talking grazing lands, we can provide cost share in ponds, livestock pipelines, tanks, and wells, fencing, if you're doing a cross fencing to make it a rotational system. We can do use exclusion, and we've done that in the past where we've had drought years and their ground is, maybe it wasn't overgrazed, it just didn't produce well, and they're willing to let it rest to try and get the condition of their pasture back up. We can offset the cost by paying them a per acre payment just to defer, don't graze it for that season, for that year. So, or in the northern panhandle, they did that for after some wildfire. From an erosion control standpoint, we have cost share for waterways, terracing, diversions, converting from conventional tillage or mulch tillage to no-till, putting in windbreaks and shelter belts, and then converting from irrigated to dry land. That's very common in our area. Cover crops. People come at cover crops with a lot of different opinions. So you kind of have to be careful and know, kind of do your background work before you jump full-fledged into cover crops. But there has been some success with cover crops in the area, so we do have cost share for that. And then from an irrigation standpoint, we do provide cost share for subsurface drip pivots and irrigation water management. I just wanted to show some pros. My time is up.
You have more questions? Yes, if you have other questions for Sarah, if you have any quick questions right now that you want to ask. Okay, Kelvin, you're it.
Hi, I'm Calvin Shaman. I'm from the Scottsbluff FSA office. For those of you who don't know, FSA is a division of the Department of Agriculture in the same building as Sarah, and I'm the County Executive Director. So the FSA mission is as follows. The Farm Service Agency is equitably serving all farmers, ranchers, and agricultural partners through the delivery of effective, efficient agricultural programs for all Americans. Now, I did provide handouts, so if you look in this folder, it should have a fact sheet on all of the programs I'm going to very briefly go over. There's also this general fact sheet which shows all of the disaster programs we administer. I'm just going to go over the ones that do drought. And there's also this fact sheet which goes over all the farm loans available. Very brief, I promise. So the first program is the Livestock Forage Disaster Program. This provides compensation to eligible livestock producers who have suffered grazing losses for covered livestock on land that is native or improved pasture land with permanent vegetative cover or is planted specifically for grazing. The grazing loss must be due to a qualifying drought condition during normal grazing period for the county. Next is the NAP program, which is the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program. This provides financial assistance to producers of non-insurable crops to protect against natural disasters that result in lower yields or crop losses or prevents crop planting. Eligible crops must be commercially produced agricultural commodities for which crop insurance is not available. The eligible causes of loss would include, along with drought, damaging weather, freeze, hail, excessive moisture, excessive wind or hurricanes, adverse natural occurrences, for example, earthquake or flood. Basic coverage is catastrophic, but there are options now for buy-up coverage. The basic cost is about $250 under normal circumstances, and depending on your buy-up coverage, the cost could be more. The application for coverage for that fiscal year, so for 2017, is March 15th, so it passed this year, so next year you have to do March 15th. There's the ECP, the Emergency Conservation Plan. This provides emergency funding and technical assistance to farmers and ranchers to rehabilitate farmland damaged by natural disaster and to implement emergency water conservation measures in periods of severe drought. Available funding for ECP is determined annually by Congress. FSA County Committee is authorized to implement ECP for all disaster except drought, which is authorized by the FSA State Committee, or National Office, sorry, excuse me. Producers may receive cost share of up to 75%. It's limited to $200,000 per person or legal entity. ECP enrollment periods are established by the County Committee. And all the technical support for that program is administered through the NRC. There's the Conservation Reserve Program, Emergency Haying and Grazing Option. CRP, really brief, is when a participant contracts with the FSA and establishes a long-term resource conserving plant species to control soil erosion, improve water quality, and develop wildlife habitat. FSA provides participants with cost share and rental payments. Emergency haying and grazing of CRP can be authorized to provide relief to livestock producers affected by a severe drought. Authorization is provided by either a national FSA office or by a state FSA committee. And this determination was utilized by the U.S. Drought Monitor. And on a side note, most of our programs that deal with drought, we implement them using that U.S. Drought Monitor, the National U.S. Drought Monitor. CRP participants approved for emergency and haying and grazing will not be assessed the normal payment reduction. There's the ELAP program. This is the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish program. $20 million of Commodity Credit Corporation funds is allocated each fiscal year for the ELAP program. And this assistance is provided for losses not covered by other disaster assistance programs. It provides assistance for livestock death losses, feed and grazing losses, on losses resulting from the cost of transporting water to livestock due to an eligible drought, losses resulting from the costs associated with gathering livestock for treatment related to cattle tick fever, honeybee feed, colony and hive losses, and farm-raised fish feed and death losses. This is a big program we've administered in the past. The LIP program, it's the Livestock Indemnity program. This provides benefits to livestock producers for livestock deaths in excess of normal mortality caused by eligible loss conditions, including eligible adverse weather, eligible disease, and eligible attacks, and attacks by animals reintroduced into the wild by the federal government or protected by federal law, including wolves and avian predators are the only attacks that are covered. The producer must have owned the eligible livestock on the day the livestock died, and animals must have been maintained for commercial use as part of a farming operation on the day they died. Drought itself is not an eligible weather event except when associated with anthrax, a condition that occurs because of drought results in the death of livestock. Now, there's more details in the fact sheets. If you guys have any questions, you can stop on by. My phone number is the same as Sarah's, just push option 2. Thank you.
Any questions for Calvin real quick? All right. So that is the advisory groups that we have presentations for today. Again, there are also things, fact sheets and stuff in your folders. There will also, again, be the PowerPoints on Google. So now we're going to let a couple of the sort of official organizations who are also stakeholders in this process, direct stakeholders as opposed to advisory group members, talk a little bit about their own capabilities and resources.
Hey, Tracy.
Yes?
I'm sorry, this is Nicole. I just responded to your note, and I was just going to show real briefly, if there's time, and I can wait for a while, the website with the tools.
No, let's go ahead and do that now before we shift gears.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, that's all right. Okay, I stopped my share, so you should be able to share what you wanted to show.
Okay.
Ignore everything I just said.
Sorry, folks. My name's Nicole Wall, and I work for the National Drought Mitigation Center. Next month, Tracy will be having me and somebody else, probably one of our climatologists, Curtis or Deborah Bathke, come out. And what we'll be doing next month is discussing some of the various tools that we have available. Tracy also attended a workshop of ours last month and became aware of the various drought tools as well. And so we really look forward to getting to know you more, and then also understanding what tools we have available that you might be able to utilize into the future. And I don't know, Tracy, if you have anything else you want to mention while I try to share my screen. I can't multitask very well, so I'm trying to do several.
Anyway, that's okay.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
I don't know. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, except there's this black box here. Let me get rid of that. So here's the National Drought Mitigation Center's website. We do have plans in revamping it, but not in the near future. So you should be able to find a lot of good resources here. Every week we put out the drought monitor, as you know. You can find the drought monitor on this website. You can also find various other tools such as the drought impact reporter, VegDry, which is a remote sensing product that we put out regarding plant health. We also have various drought indices that we kind of take care of. So the standardized precipitation index can be found here. We also have a new tool called the Drought Risk Atlas, which we'll highlight more next month, which has a lot of historical indices and hydrological data related to drought. I don't know how I got into that page, but so just a variety of different tools. We also have planning resources, and we do have a database of drought plans that you can all consult. So you can look at drought plans from the state level, the regional level, national level, and then regional levels, state levels, and local level plans. We also have tribal plans available. that's about all I wanted to say, I guess, for right now regarding our center. We also play in the sandbox with the National Integrated Drought Information System, which is our federal partner. And so they have a really nice website, fairly new. So, you know, you can easily on their front page find out where drought is occurring every week. We also work with a lot of the different drought early warning systems. So under regions, you can see all the different areas of stakeholders that we have been working with over the years on various drought monitoring and planning efforts. And the workshop that Tracy attended last week was for the Missouri River Basin last month, sorry. So there's a page dedicated to those efforts as well. So I guess that's it, Tracy. I don't want to take up a bunch of your time. So just to kind of give an overview, I guess, is the purpose today. And then we'll be coming out next month to talk more in depth.
All right, thank you, Nicole. And just to kind of remind everybody, once we're all done with this drought plan, it will also find a home on the Drought Mitigation Center's planning site, so that it will be an example of stuff that's been done regionally so that other people can reference it to see what we did right, which I think is cool. So you'll all be famous one day. By the end of this year, you will all be famous.
Yes, and we look forward to sharing your success stories. So thanks for mentioning that, Tracy.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the stakeholder agencies. We're going to start out with the UNL Panhandle Extension, and then the City of Scottsbluff and the City of Herring. So Dave and Cody, you're it. You want to sing?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dave Ostick. I'm the communications person at Panhandle Research and Extension Center here in Scottsbluff. And Cody Creech is one of our faculty members. He's the dryland cropping system specialist. And we're going to try and stay in the time here. Probably it's more accurate to call it Nebraska Extension in the Panhandle instead of just the Panhandle R&E Center. Kind of what areas we might be able to touch on. First, our general mission is to help Nebraskans enhance their lives through research-based education in a number of focus areas: beef systems, the learning child, community environment, community vitality initiative, cropping and water systems, food, nutrition, and health, 4-H and youth development, and disaster recovery resources. Those are the kind of the static areas, I guess, that we focus our programs on. But, and I think Cody will get into this in a little more detail. Nebraska Extension is really organizing its efforts and its current programs a lot more on issues instead of areas of expertise. The state director of extension is Chuck Hibbert, who used to be the director out of the Panhandle Center here. And he's kind of reorganized extension in a couple ways. One is to focus on issues. So instead of, for example, irrigation, the issue might be helping farmers improve irrigation management to deal with water stress situations or something like that. So in the case of a drought, I think you would see programs focus a little more on the specific challenges that are facing irrigators or everyone else in a drought. Who we are and where we are briefly. Within the NPNRD boundaries, we have the Panhandle Research and Extension Center just on the northwest side of Scottsbluff here. We have extension offices in Scottsbluff, Bridgeport, and Oshkosh. But the larger picture is that the Panhandle Extension District includes all 11 counties of the Nebraska Panhandle, plus the Sand Hills over to Valentine and Thetford. There's about 5 more counties over there. So we cover a lot of area, and we tend to share expertise across county borders. So you would probably see some of the extension educators and some of the specialists come in from other areas just outside of the valley here to help work on programming. Now we have both, so the county offices are staffed by extension educators who used to be like, who's the guy on the county agent on Green Acres? He knew everything, right? Well, today extension educators tend to specialize a little more, so we tend to have cropping educators based in like Alliance in Sydney. We tend to have some youth educators spread out around the Panhandle, several whose specialties are in beef, and several whose are in community vitality or other areas like that. And they tend to work across county lines. Like I said, if we're going to have a program on responding to the Farm Bill and your options under the Farm Bill, we might pull in educators from several areas. Now, here in the Panhandle Center in Scotts Bluff, we have about 13 faculty members. I think we're currently back full. Just appointed an irrigation specialist who will be starting May 1st. But their areas of expertise are ag economics, dryland cropping systems, water and irrigation management, a couple of crop breeders, one in dry beans and other alternative crops, horticulture, feedlot management, forage and rangeland ecology, cow-calf and range management, entomology, plant pathology, integrated weed management, soils, community vitality, the learning child, and groundwater science. The specialists that are they're faculty members in INR, they tend to have joint appointments, 50% doing the research to find out how to address the problems, 50% extension. So you'll see them writing articles, you'll see them at field days and doing stuff like that. And they tend to work hand in hand with the educators who are based out in the county.
Okay, so Dave did a good job explaining kind of what we're set up to do now as more of an issue-based approach. So there's currently 18 issues that are being addressed. For an example, I'm on the efficient water use issue team. There's folks on that team that are work on rangeland or with cattle. There's ag economists. It's a diverse group, and we're all working on the same kind of issue there. And so ideally, we would like our issue or our extension activities to drive our research, and our research to drive our extension, and work back and forth that way. And that's currently how we're set up. So some of the ways we're currently doing this, a good example with the breeding low water use crops, our bean breeder here at the Panhandle Center has developed some dry beans that are heat tolerant and fairly drought tolerant. So we're looking at how much we can reduce the water use of those dry beans. Can we even use them on dryland acres? Are some of the current things that we are looking at. We like to look at the deficit irrigation. A lot of that work stems around if we only have so much water to use, when's the best time to use that water? If we're looking at a corn crop and I only have 3 inches of water to use, do I put it on now or do I put it on, a tasseling or something, for example? So how do we get the most out of our water? We like to look at a lot of rotations. What can we use that'll use less water, be more efficient out there, and get the most bang for our buck? Some of our resources, of course, so we have our facilities where we do a lot of our research. We have research farms located down in Sydney, as well as here. We got facilities across the state, really, that we utilize. We also work a lot with the cooperators who are growers across the Panhandle. I have plots up in Hemingford and clear down to near Curtis. We just go wherever we want to go, and we'll find folks that are willing to work with us. And so we can kind of ground truth of what we're trying to do. We have a good organization to be able to deliver research information to our clientele, whether it's online or through the media, and different field days as well. So we partner really well with the groups outside the university. That includes, our regional universities, government agencies, and others. So I think we have one last slide there. Dave, any final words?
Any questions?
So if I want to know about changing my irrigation scheduling, and I want to know what you've learned about irrigating wheat. Where do I go to look for it? I go online or I call you on the phone?
Yeah, you can go online and look on, most of our information gets put out through CropWatch. You can also contact your local extension office and they'll put you in touch with the person that knows the most about it.
I should have brought, and I promised to send so they can upload them to Google Docs, a kind of a program that description that covers a lot of the programs we do and has websites like our Panhandle Center website, CropWatch, beef.unl.edu, and some others. And there's also, I will also send a 2-page directory. On one side it lists all the county offices, phone numbers, and the staff.
Put it on our Google thing?
Yes. And on the other side, all the faculty members, the specialists who are based at the Panhandle Center and their areas of expertise. I apologize for not having that with me today.
Thanks.
And Bruce will mail you a copy. Are you it, Leanne?
I got your number.
You can talk Jack into giving the presentation.
Oh.
I do not.
All
right.
7-ish minutes. Make sure that you talk loud enough so that the sound picks up over here too. You can still stand over there. Just project.
Okay. My name is Leanne Sato. I'm the City Scottsbluff Stormwater Program Specialist. I am one of 3 city staff members sitting on this drought plan team. Today's presentation is a very, very general overview of what the city of Scottsbluff would be able to do with our drought response. The Scottsbluff City mission officially, I honestly could not find. Is it not in the budget? Every department has its own specific mission, but in general, they tend to strive to provide a quality of life for the residents by providing efficient service and effective resource management. So, and our activities within the North Platte NRD are, of course, focused primarily with our municipality here in Scottsbluff County. Within the city's scope, we have policies which we would enforce during drought. And then we have ongoing education programs, particularly through stormwater, for resilient, sustainable practices. So better management, better residential stormwater management, landscaping practices that reduce effective drought or work better in drought conditions. So the policies that we enforce, we have 2 levels of warnings that go into effect during drought. One is the water warning, when after normal water pumping, our water storage does not regain 70% of its water capacity by the next morning. If our groundwaters fall below normal seasonal levels, or if our daily consumption exceeds 70% of the water system capacity. That's when our water warnings go into effect. That's when we would instigate our watering restrictions, which according to discussions that Annie had in her group, we would actually be looking at. There is research pointing that this would actually increase water usage. So this is something that we may be doing now. If drought conditions continued, then we would enter into a water emergency, which would then we would ask our residents not to use any water for residential landscaping watering. Our education efforts during drought would go into a wider range, wider scope, and a higher priority scale. So not only would it come out through our stormwater program, we would be integrating interdepartmentally. We would also be working with our library, any of our public outreach services. Tim Newman, our emergency management coordinator, would probably be called in for some coordination efforts there too. Then beyond that, like UNL Extension, we partner extensively with many different organizations. So we would expand our efforts again with the NRD. Nebraska statewide arboretum is NSA, keeps Scottsbluff beautiful as KS2B, ESU 13 to reach, have a stronger impact through the schools and into the school systems. And then our funding resources as far as drought, we really don't have anything. We are a municipality, that's our job, that's our focus, is to keep the city running. We have little programs, like pre-rebate programs, that are better integrated into our drought management when weather is good, so that those resources are there when we need them during drought. Just like knowledge and education. So I did not add a contact page, I'm really sorry, but Annie Folk is here. She's our city planner. I'm stormwater program specialist. Tim Newman is the third representative of the city. He's our emergency management coordinator. You're welcome to contact him on this.
A couple things I would just add is that we have done a lot of demonstration projects through the city on city property, especially downtown, trying to showcase some very low water use plants and show that it actually can be very attractive, because I think that's people's biggest hang up with converting bluegrass is that they don't want it to look like a weed patch. And so I think we've done that fairly successfully and have good feedback on that.
Right. So if you've seen our downtown gardens, that's what she's referring to, or the bioswale at the library.
On the east side of the library.
Yeah. And our education efforts now are partnering with organizations or groups that want to bring that knowledge onto their own sites. So currently we're working with Father John Sorensen at Guadalupe Center. Lori Zimmerman sits on that design team also to help, to help bring that knowledge and experience out more to the community. So that's our spiel.
You don't have any type of tiered pricing schedule with water or anything of that nature?
Right now we have a set residential rate for the first 4,000 gallons.
Currently, that is something that has been suggested that we look at for quite some time, because currently the more water you use, the less you pay per gallon, which at some point we should probably flip on its head.
That's something that probably what you should do is operate that in, just a suggestion, is operate that even during the non-drought years, take that additional funding and set aside for your drought emergency monies as an example. So
those are suggestions that I know that did come up in her discussion group and that she did mention. So we are going to look at that.
I was talking to a gentleman today, one of my vendors lives in Scottsbluff, and 10 years ago we put in a Sandpoint well, which is you can still do. So they can use all the water they want because it's domestic well. How do you monitor all that stuff? I mean, they're still using way above what they should be using. You know,
has there been any talk about permanent restriction for city water? Anybody? Has that ever come up?
A restriction on city water and
permanent, just like a permanent. There's just like we're restricted on what we can pump per acre.
Oh,
I'm actually going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. You guys have to listen to me again. So I'll get you off the hook, Leanne, and answer that question.
Okay.
So,
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So hand it to our neighbor across the
Guy across the river.
Guy across the river. I'm Pat Heath. I'm Public Works Director for the City of Gering. My primary function is to oversee the water and wastewater systems in Gering. Our mission basically is to provide safe, continuous supply of water to enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Gering. And we do, of course, provide potable water for the city. And but our activities, basically with the North Platte NRD, one is we annually report our water usage, which we're required to do the NRD. Our pumping, that is. We're also required to send them our wastewater discharges, which I don't know if many of you know, but wastewater treatment plants do discharge back to the North Platte River. So there are some return flows from the city. It's much less than what we pump. Okay, I'm not working, Tracy, for some reason.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh,
So anyway.
You can't get rid of me that easily.
Yes. Drought response. Basically when we see drought starting or has happened, one thing we do is increase our public education. Normally we send out something in a newsletter, maybe once every year and a half, 2 years. We'll have something on water conservation in one of our newsletters, or maybe our water quality report we send out. We reference, of course, our water system emergency manual, which we are required to have. That's something the Health and Human Services Department, which oversees water system, regulate public water systems in Nebraska. They require us to have this manual, and drought is included in that manual. We increase our monitoring of static and pumping levels in our wells. And right now we're required to do them monthly by the state, but we do monthly. But if we see a drought or we're in a drought, we'll do them at least weekly. Sometimes we may go more often, twice a week. We increase, one thing we really monitor is our water usage, because believe it or not, in a drought situation, water usage does increase. We've seen increases as much as 25 to 35% during dry years. So normally when we start seeing those, we'll issue a voluntary restrictions on the public. Granted, if we do that, we're going to cut back some income we're going to make, but the idea is, with the city, isn't to make money. We're there just to provide water at a fair cost to the customers. But we hate to see people start using water. It seems like when they have dry years, they think, well, I've got bluegrass, so I need to add 3 inches, every week instead of 1.5 inches or something in the hot time of the year, and really don't need to do that. 1.5 inches is more than enough. It doesn't hurt if the grass goes somewhat dormant in the summer and when it's dry. We've kind of learned that a little bit. But we do see those huge increases in water uses. Water restrictions, we have an ordinance similar to Scotts Bluff. Ours is also, we have 3 actually stages. We have a watch, a warning, and then we have an emergency. And basically it's similar. It's based on our system pumping capacity. And the idea is, like a watch, I believe we want to try to reduce consumption by 10%. I think in a warning, I think we try to reduce it, I believe, 20%. And then in a emergency, we try to reduce actually water use by at least 50%. And actually, if it was a water emergency, the only water you can use is what you would normally use in wintertime, what we call domestic use. You're not out washing your car, you're not watering your lawn, you're not washing down your driveway, watering plants, things like that. That's what we would go to in a severe emergency. And of course, one thing we really want to do is monitor our revenues. State requires cities, municipalities, budget year starts October 1 and September 30th. The tough part is we plan our year. Everything's right now, we have projects bid. We're going to spend a certain amount of dollars this year, but 60% of our revenues come in June, July, and August. So if it's a wet year, those revenues won't be there, so we'll have to use funds out of reserve. If it's a dry year, of course, we'll increase funds, usually have a little more funds, but if we go into a mandatory water restrictions, we really have to watch our spending, because we will lose considerable funds, especially in the summer months. Go next. Thank you.
You're just holding that for looks.
What's that?
You're just holding that for looks.
Yeah.
Still needs some of his time.
Resources, we use information from other water systems. We talk with other water systems on how they've handled things, what they've done, what works, what doesn't work. We've worked as far away as Aurora, Colorado, Omaha, cities like that. I talk with Jack across the river in Scotts Bluff frequently, especially if we're in dry conditions. We've worked with the NRD in the past, the extension service here, the Panhandle Extension. The NRD and the Extension Service over the last probably 10, 15 years have done a great job in getting public education out to help municipalities. And I think everyone try to reduce and watch what they're using or how they're wasting water or using their water. So we also watch, of course, NOAA. The drought monitor, we watch those frequently to see if there's any issues coming up. Go ahead, one more. Okay, partnerships. Again, other municipalities. We're all in the same boat. We need to work together. Nebraska Warren is a water, wastewater, and actually stormwater agency. We're a member of it. I know Scott's Bluff's a member of it. Basically what it is if there is some sort of natural disaster, man-made disaster, we have access to equipment, staff from other cities to come help us. Everything's spelled out. There's a mutual aid agreement that council would adopt. It's a standard agreement. And they can supply you with staff, help, equipment, whatever you need to help you back on your feet or help recover from whatever. Or if it's even like a drought, if it's during the drought, they can bring additional pumps or things in to help a city to at least maintain a water supply for their customers. And last but not least, questions, I guess. Any questions from you guys?
What is your pricing schedule in hearing?
Our pricing schedule is one, we're much higher Scott's Bluff because we've had to do more updates because of federal regulations. But our pricing is we charge I think $15.50 for the first 4,000 gallons, or $1.52 per 1,000 gallons after that. And right now, the more you use, they're starting to pay a little more, except for the real high customers still have a decreasing block, but that is being changed to an increasing block. So the next rate increase, it'll be everybody will have an increasing block rate above 4,000 gallons. So we've seen a lot of conservation during take place in the last 7-8 years because we did have to spend $9.5 million, so our rates increased about 60%. So we're much higher than some of the communities around, except for the ones that have treatment. So
what's the average water use per month on them?
Our average water use per month for the whole year's usage is about 2.5 million gallons a day. Our winter use is about 1.4 million gallons a year or a day. So that is basically domestic use. And last year, just a quick number, last year we pumped 897 million gallons of water. And that's about, I believe, about 3,750 acre feet, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Divided by 851, I'd probably tell you.
Yeah, so I think that's what it was when I ran some numbers here a while back.
In the last 20 years, how many times have you reached the third level emergency?
We haven't. We haven't even gone into any mandatory. We've always been on voluntary. But we didn't have a good ordinance until about 2009 when the city adopted its first good water restriction ordinance.
After the last drought.
Basically, yes. Yes. Any other questions?
How do you, enforce something like that? How do people?
Actually, that would have been my second to last slide, but I ran out of time. But policing would be difficult. We'd have to use several departments because it is going to be a 24/7. But we do have a citation process. There is a fine. I don't recall the fine in the ordinance, but there is a fine, and if you have a violation a second time, then your water is disconnected. I think for a period of 30 days is what it was.
That was not your second last. Okay, and now you have to listen to me again. The 5 minutes also applies to me. So this will not be as long as the last presentation. All right, so last is the NRD, which is also, yes, sort of the ringleader of this, but also we have certain capabilities, we have certain resources and limitations just like everybody else. So broadly speaking, NRD authorities cover groundwater quantity management, quality management. We also do things to do with like tree planting and soil erosion. But in this district, a lot of what we focus on is water. Part of that was going on before we had to do integrated management, which is a thing that we do in partnership with the State Department of Natural Resources, because parts of this area were declared over appropriated and the rest of it was fully appropriated, and we'll talk about that in a second. So we have to do certain additional things on top of what we were already doing in order to attempt to balance or rebalance the supplies and uses of groundwater so that the activities of groundwater users are not harming each other or surface water appropriators. We are also a property taxing entity, as I'm sure all of you are aware. We also have the authority to levy an occupation tax, which we do not do right now. To kind of distinguish on what that is, property taxes, everybody who owns property pays them. Occupation taxes are levied only on irrigators, which is why we have chosen not to do that. We would essentially be asking a slice of the population to pay for what we do for everybody, and we don't think that's fair. Tell your senators that, by the way. Not kidding. So, I mentioned integrated management. When LB 962 was passed in 2004, it designated part of our area as over-appropriated. It is this sort of salmon color here, and this is Pumpkin Creek. That's also part of the over-appropriated area. Those areas we had to do to institute special management actions, including things like irrigation allocations, to try to dial back groundwater use. Kevin mentioned earlier that we have a goal of getting back to 1997 levels of development. That is also related to this. It's also related to the the requirements for the Platte River program that Jerry talked about a little bit earlier. The rest of this area that is not colored is determined fully appropriated in our district. We currently don't do special management actions in that area. We could. We have the authority to do that. All of that stuff that we do for integrated management, allocations, retirements, things that you've probably heard a bit about, are things that are aimed at increasing stream flows in the North Platte River, decreasing the effects of groundwater depletion, pumping from groundwater wells on those stream flows. So we have irrigation allocations in the over-appropriated area, in the North Platte River Valley part of the over-appropriated area. The irrigation allocation is 14 inches per acre for over 5 years. In Pumpkin Creek, it is 12 inches. There are a couple of reasons those are different. And you get to spread that over 5 years. So we allow producers to manage how they're going to use that water. So somebody might decide to put on 6 inches an acre in 1 year, but they need 18 inches in the next year. As long as that all evens out after the end of the 5 years, you're fine. If it doesn't, you're not fine. The other things that we can do, we do some retirements of irrigated lands. Some of them are temporary, some of them are permanent. We lease some surface water, natural flow only. We can't lease storage water. Those are always temporary, they have to be. We can also, we don't do this, we can also institute acreage reductions. And the way that would work is we would have to tell everybody, you have to cut your acres by 10% across the board. Everybody would have to do it the same way. That's a requirement. It is required to be structured that way in the law. That is not something that we do. For water quality, we have a particular quality management area down in Dennis and Bruce's neck of the woods in the Lisco, Oshkosh, Llewellyn stretch of Garden County along the river. We monitor that for nitrates. There are really high nitrates there, and there have been for a long time. So we do some special management activities in that area. We are also talking about starting to do some additional monitoring and management in other areas of the district that also have really high nitrates, because that's something else that we are concerned about. Currently, we have financial resources for things like cost share for conservation practices. Some of this is stuff that we do in partnership with NRCS. We also have the Nebraska Soil and Water Conservation Program that is administered through the state DNR that we do some of our cost share through as well. And that can cost share anything from flow meters to pipelines to a subsurface drip conversion. There are a lot of things on that list that are considered conservation practices that we can cost share on. We do information and education stuff. We do that mostly, well, I won't say mostly. We do that some in the schools with children. We also do some adult education things, and that can range from KNDB radio spots to having a booth at like Bean Day and stuff like that. We're trying to broaden our education portfolio in the adult education realm so that we can do more, particularly related to drought, but also other things too. And we also have financial and logistical partnerships. Logistical partnerships meaning we can help you physically do stuff even if we're not writing a check. Limitations, money. There is a bill in front of the legislature right now, FYI, LB 98, that would extend part of our levy authority that we use specifically to implement integrated management activities. So the money, some of the money that we use to pay for these land retirements, for example, or some of the other conservation practices that we cost share on, that's on the chopping block this year, and it's not looking pretty. So those resources might get a lot more limited after this year. We can allocate water use, but we cannot allocate water use to everybody. There is a specific provision in state statute 46740, subparagraph 3, that says that we cannot limit the amount of water that a municipality or an industry can use until January 1st of 2026.
Ag's not an industry. Ag isn't an industry.
No. It's when they were, when subparagraph 5 talks about industries, it's like thinking about things like ethanol plants or manufacturing facilities, sort of standalone things like that. But no, it not ag and not livestock. So we cannot tell a municipality you can only have X amount of water. A municipality can put in its own restrictions. That's not prohibited, but we, the NRD, cannot restrict that. We can't restrict the pumping from industries until January 1st, 2026, and then the whole game changes unless they change the law.
That being said, though, we can't just punch in a new well whenever we want.
No, that's true. You still, right, you still have, we can still institute rules and regulations that apply, but they have to apply to everybody. So it's not just the municipality that has to get a construction permit. It's not just a municipality that has to do certain things. They're across the board things that happen also to apply to municipal activities.
There's a moratorium on well drilling for ag, unless it's a replacement.
No, it's for everybody, except for domestic and range livestock. It's everybody. Yeah, we cannot regulate domestic wells and range livestock wells. So those don't have to get a construction permit, and we don't monitor those. So like the Sandpoint well that you were asking about, we don't monitor this. We can't.
That'd be really expensive, probably.
It would. And we also cannot regulate surface water use. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about administration that the State Department of Natural Resources administers surface water. They're the ones who handle shutting people off in a short year. That is solidly in their court. That's not anything that we can do. We can work with these guys, we can't control them.
But the only people they shut off is people with no supplemental storage contracts. It's usually your natural flow users. A lot of us have storage contracts.
Right. And, you know, in terms of who we can shut down, we can shut you down if you break our rules, and there's a process for that. We can issue cease and desist orders. That is in the case of rules violations that get that far along. But we cannot just blanket shut everybody down. We can't tell you, you don't get any more water. That is outside our authorities. Any questions? Okay, I even stayed my 5 minutes. All right. So that's the end of the presentations. We're gonna do one more thing before I let you go. Does anyone have, before we start this part of the conversation, any questions, any last questions for any of the presenters before we switch gears? I know this is hard to see. You don't actually have to read it. Okay, so to get ready for the next set of meetings, which start a little later this month, one of the things that I put together was this table, which is also going to be on Google Docs and then or Drive, and then you'll be able to see the whole thing instead of all squished up like it is. So one of the things that we asked all of the sector groups to do in their meetings was to come up with a set of goal statements or problem statements or priority things to focus on. Community and education and emergency management still need to do that. Wait a second. You were going to talk about stuff, weren't you?
I don't need to. I have my
I'm
annual
gonna
report
make
over
you do
there,
it,
so it's good. I'm totally
Are you
fine.
sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Okay, I forgot you didn't have slides. I'm terribly sorry.
No,
Are you
that's
sure you
fine.
don't want to talk about
No,
that?
if
Okay,
you
all right.
pick up an annual report.
Okay. So you know what that was about. Melissa is with Panhandle Public Health District. She didn't have any slides, but she was going to give a presentation, short talk. She just said go look at the thing that's on the table. So there is a Panhandle Public Health District handout that's part of your packet. And she's the person to ask if you have questions. So anyway, this Excel file, which is going to be a PDF, is going to be on Google Drive. And what I did was consolidate everybody's goal statements, except the people who haven't done theirs yet. So this will be updated. And what I wanted to show you or have you start thinking about is everybody had that conversation independently. So we didn't tell anybody what their goal statements had to be or what their priorities had to be. But I want you guys to think about or look at this when you get a chance. And look at how many things are broadly similar. So for example, this here first line is all about, well, it was before that got deleted. Water use. So maintaining water, surface water and groundwater quality, surface water and groundwater quantity. A couple of different groups talked about that independently. So I put all of those on one line. So each line shows where your goal statements or your priorities matched up. And then you have a couple down here at the bottom, just so you know what the color coding is. Green is a goal and blue is an objective. And then there are some down here at the bottom, these ones in the dark gray, where the things that you listed didn't really match up from group to group. So there are a lot of similarities. There are some things that were sort of unique to each group. So as you're moving into these next sets of meetings, one of the things you're going to be talking about is what's important to each of your sector groups and helping each other understand why those things are important. So you've got these broad similarities where you were kind of talking about the same things. You've got these areas where you were not talking about the same things. So part of these meetings, I want you to be helping each other to understand, particularly where you were not talking about the same things, but also to make sure that you all are actually on the same page when you are talking about a goal of, say, education. You know, are you really talking about educating the same people about the same things in the same ways? And then maybe what are some ways that you can start to bring that into a common goal and a common set of objectives as we move forward in this process? Does that make sense? Excellent. And do your homework, please, people who haven't done it. So there's going to be more things put into this table. So this will be updated beyond what you see it now. I think that the updated version will be up middle of next week. It's not out there right now. So what do you think? The last thing I wanted to do. Okay, any more questions before we talk about next steps? You sure you don't want to?
I think it's really important though that other people hear from a sort of health perspective.
Sure.
They're very unique. I will not very long if you just talk about what you guys do. Okay. Whatever you were gonna say before. Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. We're gonna make her talk anyway.
I talk really fast. Sorry.
Like I said, I can't cover everything public health does, so this is our annual report. It comes out every year. You might have seen it. It goes out in the mail, so look through that. And we have some of our board members here too, so they can fill it in. So we're the public health department that covers the Panhandle region and Grant County. And our mission is working together to improve the health, safety, and quality of life for all who live, learn, work, and play in Panhandle. So we were recently accredited, so we're an accredited health department that we're more of the monitor and prevention side health department, not like an enforcing health department. So we offer a variety of programs in this area, including the National Diabetes Prevention Program, Worksite Wellness, Vets at Nebraska, Children's Health, Dental Health, Health and Families of America, and cancer prevention, West Nile virus, a whole bunch of things. For drought specifically, we don't really have any sort of plan in place. We do, though, work with the Panhandle Regional Medical Response System, or the PREMR system. And in case you're not familiar, that is involves leadership and guidance from a multi-agency team, including representatives from hospitals, emergency response coordinators, and safety coordinators. And so they're really there to help manage large numbers of casualties or a disruption in services. So if you were to have a drought situation that would disrupt some of your services, that's something that we could access to help other people. In terms of funding, we're kind of at the mercy of the Department of Health and Human Services. We don't anticipate during a drought that we would have any sort of funding cut off. So you would have access still to us and to anyone else we could help you get in touch with, including PREMRs and all the area hospitals too. And in terms of our limitations, like I said, we're not really enforcers. So if you have any kind of water issues or you have any kind of housing issues that might come from this, we can't really enforce anything legally, but we can help you get to the avenues that you would need to help you during those kind of situations. So it's very broad. There's a lot of stuff.
Okay. So next steps, really quickly, Nicole mentioned, and I will remind you, that there is a drought tools workshop on May 10th. We're going to set that up sort of hands-on style. So you'll have to share computers set up so that as the presenters are working through the various drought tools and monitoring tools that are available, you can actually click through them and play with them yourselves. And one of the things, and I'll remind you of this on that day, I'm sure, one of the things that we want to know out of this is what are you really actually going to use in real life? So when you leave that workshop, and off in your regular whatever it is you're doing, what are you really going to access? What things do you need to know so that we can make sure that the information that we are making available to you regularly as part of this drought process, not just the planning but the actual implementation, is stuff that's actually going to be useful. So that's the sort of feedback that we're looking for coming out of that. Also,
and
again,
Tracy?
Yes?
Real quick before I jump off, I wanted to mention towards the health aspect, which is really exciting news. I haven't even shared it with you yet, but I was going to send you an email at the end of the week, is that CDC has come out with some tools regarding drought and health. And so for the last speaker, I would just love to have you at the tools workshop as well to see if any of that information could be helpful for your health department. So I guess I just wanted to make a pitch that health is coming out with some new tools as well. Thank you.
Awesome news, and she is giving you a thumbs up, so I think she is excited too.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And again, the cross-sector meetings are starting, I think April 17th is the first one. They're sprinkled over the last couple of weeks of this month. If you have not received an email with the schedule, your schedule for the rest until June, talk to Elizabeth. You can talk to me too, but she sent them out. If you are not receiving any of the emails, and I've handled a couple of them, but if anybody else is not receiving the stuff that we're sending out, please let us know so that we can get information to you somehow. So that you can stay in the loop. Any final questions? Okay.
We're on our way. Huh?
You're not. I still got to talk to you. Take some food with you if you would like. Bruce, did you get your chocolate chip cookie?
Yeah.
Excellent. You can have them. All right. You can have more. So you can, if there are extras back there, you are welcome to take them with you. Oh yes. Hang on before you all disappear. Elizabeth has a 3-question little survey thing that she needs you to fill out. You need to do that now. Okay. Can you do those now? This is just a little short feedback thing to find out what was helpful from this and what you still need to know. So if you could fill that out real quick, that would be awesome. This means you. No.